Welcome to Early Indicators. This is episode 6 in our January domain on geopolitical realignments. Today's theme is the return of geography, chokepoints, minerals, and the new strategic map. In this episode, we explore signals that are structural, not events, early, not reactive, underreported, not mainstream, and directional, not episodic. These signals reveal how physical geography, long overshadowed by globalization, has re-emerged as a central force shaping power. Historical context: how we reached this moment. For much of the late 20th century, globalization created the illusion that geography no longer mattered. Integrated supply chains, container shipping, and digital networks made distance feel irrelevant. Nations believed that economic interdependence could override physical constraints. But beneath this narrative, structural forces were quietly reshaping the strategic map. Rapid industrialization increased demand for critical minerals. Climate change altered water basins, shipping routes, and agricultural zones. Urbanization concentrated populations near coastlines and river systems. Meanwhile, new technologies, from batteries to semiconductors, intensified competition for geographically concentrated resources. Key turning points include the 2008 commodity shock, the rise of rare earth dominance in the 2010s, the Arctic's accelerating melt, and repeated disruptions at maritime chokepoints. Each revealed that physical geography still governs the flow of goods, energy, and information. The current moment represents an inflection. Geography is no longer a background factor, it is a primary driver of geopolitical behavior. This shift is structural because it reshapes global systems of trade, energy, and security. It alters long-term trajectories by forcing nations to rethink supply chains, resource access, and territorial strategy. It reveals fragility in overextended networks and resilience in diversified, geographically grounded systems. This theme fits the domain because geopolitical realignments increasingly emerge from physical constraints, minerals, water, routes, and terrain, rather than ideology or diplomacy alone. Current signals: what's emerging right now? Several early, underreported, directional signals show that geography is reasserting itself as a strategic force. Critical mineral concentration is reshaping industrial policy. Lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earths are heavily clustered in a handful of regions, giving those areas disproportionate leverage over global manufacturing. Maritime chokepoints, such as the Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Panama Canal, are experiencing climate-driven stress, congestion, and security risks. These disruptions reveal the fragility of global shipping routes. The Arctic is opening new seasonal shipping lanes as ice retreats. While still early, this shift signals a long-term reconfiguration of global transit patterns and resource competition. Water basins are becoming geopolitical flashpoints as drought, population growth, and agricultural demand strain river systems like the Nile, Mekong, and Colorado. New mineral frontiers, deep-sea mining zones, Arctic deposits, and African interior basins are drawing investment and strategic interest, often with limited public attention. Nations are redesigning supply chains around geographic resilience, prioritizing proximity, redundancy, and access to secure transit routes. These signals matter because they reshape the global system itself. They alter long-term trajectories by redefining where industries cluster, where trade flows, and where conflict risk accumulates. They reveal fragility in climate-exposed corridors and resilience in diversified, regionally anchored networks. Signal strength: transformative. Case studies, where the shift is most visible. The Panama Canal drought: reduced water levels have forced ship restrictions, revealing how climate stress can disrupt a major artery of global trade and accelerate the search for alternative routes. The Niger-Sahel Mineral Belt: growing investment in lithium and rare earth deposits shows how resource geography is reshaping African economic strategy and attracting new geopolitical competition. Arctic shipping experiments: seasonal voyages along the Northern Sea route illustrate how melting ice is opening new transit possibilities, altering long-term expectations for Eurasian trade. Mekong River tensions. Competing upstream dams and shifting rainfall patterns highlight how water scarcity is becoming a regional security issue in Southeast Asia. Implications: why this matters. For nations, the return of geography reshapes strategic priorities, resource policy, and defense planning. For cities, it influences port expansion, water security, and industrial zoning. For firms, it alters supply chain design, mineral sourcing, and transportation risk. For communities, it affects access to water, jobs tied to resource extraction, and exposure to climate-driven disruptions. At the macro layer, global blocs reorganize around resource access, transit routes, and geographic vulnerabilities. At the micro layer, specific mining towns, river basins, and coastal hubs become focal points of economic and political pressure. This shift reveals fragility in climate-sensitive corridors and resilience in diversified, geographically grounded systems that can absorb shocks. Future expectations/projections, where this is heading. Short term, 1 to 3 years expect more national strategies focused on mineral security, water management, and choke point resilience. Countries will invest in alternative routes and regional redundancy. Medium term, 3 to 10 years. New mining regions, Arctic transit lanes, and inland logistics corridors will reshape global trade patterns. Water scarcity will become a central driver of regional diplomacy. Long term, 10+ years geography will define the strategic map of the 21st century. Resource basins, climate-altered coastlines, and new transit routes will determine economic power and geopolitical influence. Early indicators to watch. New mineral exploration zones, water-sharing negotiations, Arctic infrastructure projects, and climate-driven choke point disruptions. What to watch next: track how nations integrate geography into industrial policy, especially minerals, water, and transit resilience. These choices will shape the next generation of global power. Episode summary. This episode examined how geography is reasserting itself as a central force in global strategy. These signals: structural, early, underreported, and directional, show how minerals, choke points, and climate-altered landscapes are reshaping the strategic map. Thank you for listening to Early Indicators. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. This episode draws on publicly available information, including international think tank reports, academic research, public economic and demographic data, open-source intelligence, and non-copyrighted summaries. This episode is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute political advice, financial guidance, or predictive certainty.